has carried out test flights of its 737 MAX 8 jetliner in Seattle. That's the model which has been involved in 2 fatal crashes since October. Now, the plane maker has been under pressure following the deadly Ethiopian and Lion Air crashes. It's had to suspend all deliveries of its most popular aircraft and faces a worldwide grounding of its fleet. But the company says it's working on a software update that it hopes will solve safety concerns.
When an accident happens, for any reason, we focus relentlessly to determine why. We're united with our airline customers, international regulators, and government authorities in our efforts to support the most recent investigation, understand the facts of what happened, and help prevent future tragedies.
Meanwhile, investigators in the Ethiopian air crash have reportedly returned to Addis Ababa with data from the Boeing MAX 8's black boxes. And they were in Paris to analyze information from the plane's cockpit and flight data recorders. The crash earlier in the month killed all 157 people on board. Now, for more on this, Pratik Gohrani joins us from Dubai, and he's the manager of a Dubai-based aviation consultancy called Aerotask. Pratik, thanks so much for speaking to us here on TRT World. I want to start by asking you, what are you hearing about how testing of the 737 MAX 8s is going?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing reports that these sort of Boeing is conducting test flights, and a lot of these test flights are very short flights. Some of them are sort of as little as even 9 minutes. And I think what Boeing is trying to do here is trying to sort of test the takeoff performance of the aircraft, because both the Lion Air and the Ethiopian crashes were like shortly after takeoff. So these test flights are very short, and they're probably sort of testing how the aircraft performs during takeoff. One other thing that Boeing is also doing, and there are reports that they're also sort of test flighting the 737-800 along with the MAX 8, because the -800 is like the direct predecessor to the MAX 8. And probably here Boeing is trying to sort of see how do these 2 different aircraft types react under the same circumstances.
Okay. And Pratik, what do you think Boeing would need to say or to prove before all the 737 MAXs that have been grounded can fly again?
I think this would also depend on sort of what would be the final outcomes of the investigation into the 2 crashes. But sort of there are already sort of reports of sort of there's going to be a software sort of update that sort of goes into the MAX 8. And sort of there, depending on what would be the outcomes of the investigation, there would be further sort of airworthiness directives sort of that would need to sort of be published. And all the operators would have to comply with them. And this could include new software upgrades, pilot recertifications, pilot trainings again, and other sort of updates and upgrades that may need to be made.
And Pratik, just how damaging would you say is the global grounding of the 737 MAX planes for Boeing? And can they survive this economically and also branding-wise?
I think in terms of sort of a lot of operators are now having to sort of restructure their network and their fleet. A lot of operators are now looking at sort of wet leased alternatives to sort of, replace the MAX 8 flights. And, we've already seen Norwegian being sort of the first airline to publicly go and ask Boeing for a compensation for whatever losses they've incurred as a result of this grounding. A similar sort of Dreamliner grounding happened in 2013. And sort of there were sort of speculations of sort of Boeing to make, compensating airlines for the lost time. But I mean, it's important here to note that sort of when Dreamliners were grounded for a period of 3 to 4 months, there were just 50 Dreamliners in operation. And here we have about 350 to 400 aircraft that are being grounded. So in terms of scale, there's already a lot of losses that airlines are sort of incurring, and there might be sort of forcing Boeing to compensate it. But in terms of my personal opinion, I think the MAX 8 program is sort of too large to fail. Boeing is sort of doing all they can at this point to sort of, compensate airlines, or looking at sort of options in terms of how quickly they want to sort of work around it and fix the problem.
Okay, too large to fail, you say. Pratik, thank you very much indeed for your analysis there. Pratik Gohrani, a Dubai-based aviation manager of a Dubai-based aviation consultancy in Dubai. Thank you.